Mom and Dad told me when you were on the way, they wouldn't love me any less. Well, I didn't believe them. I thought you'd take my place. I didn't know what best friends would I get. Through the years I'd make mistakes so you wouldn't have to make them. And I took chances every day so you'd know when to take them. You can follow my footprints, but you don't gotta fill my shoes. It's just a path for you to follow if you so choose. You can take the road less traveled. Yeah, I'd probably do that too. But if you're lost and feeling broken through and through, you can follow the footprints I left for you. If you break Mama's window, just go on and tell the truth. 'Cause trust is the one thing you don't wanna break. And if you drink yourself into trouble, then getting locked up in your room is way better than getting locked up at the station. Oh, through the years I'd make mistakes so you wouldn't have to make them. Yeah, I took chances every day so you know when to take them. You can follow my footprints, but you don't gotta fill my shoes. It's just a path for you to follow if you so choose. You can take the road less traveled. Yeah, I'd probably do that too. But if you're lost and feeling broken through and through, you can follow the footprints I left for you. Chasing down your dreams, I hope that I can look ahead and you'll turn and say to me, you can follow my footprints, but you don't gotta fill my shoes. It's just a path for you to follow if you so choose. You can take the road less traveled. Yeah, I'd probably do that too. But if you're lost and feeling broken through and through, you can follow the footprints I left for you. You can follow the footprints I left.
you. Can you do that?
Like my other attorney did. You're
Miss
She's required by law. No, it is not. My friend sent me the law in Arizona.
Okay.
It is not.
Miss Anna.
My friend is a police officer.
Okay, so we've talked about the no bond on this case. Your next court date on this matter is going to be March 17th at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not happen. So you're going to want to stay in contact with your attorney. The other matter that I do need to talk with you about is the misdemeanor domestic violence offenses. Again, you have the right to remain silent on those. Anything you say can and will be used against you. On that case, because you're being held no bond on the felony, I'm going to have a $500 cash or secure bond. I'm going to appoint Janet Altschuler to represent you in that case. You are not allowed to have any contact with the victim in this case. So
That's my house. I was told I could stay there.
Well, you're not going to
judge.
You're not going to be able to go back there for now until another judge says something.
He had somewhere I don't.
Your attorney can talk with you about that. Your arraignment in that case is going to be March 13th at 8:30 in the morning. And so those are the court dates.
No.
Miss Annis, if you don't show up when you're supposed to, the courts can issue a warrant for your arrest. So make sure you
get out of here.
All right. You're all done for today, Miss Annis. You can go. Thanks. Good morning. Tell me your name.
Good morning. My name is Raul Carrasco III.
Mr. Carrasco, you're here today on felony charges of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, 3 of those, and also discharging a firearm within city limits and drive-by shooting. This is the time for your initial appearance where we're going to set conditions of release. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. Today, I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services. Tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances here this morning. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release. They're asking for a $25,000 bond. Mr. Hotchkiss, is there anything you wanted to add?
Just note the road rage nature of what occurred here. Mr. Carrasco does admit firing his firearm. He says he did so accidentally. That's not really the way guns work. So for that reason, we think that a bond is warranted. Thank you.
Mr. Kethian?
Judge, I didn't receive any information on this client. Do you mind if I just speak with him for a minute about this?
Of course.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Judge. Sorry about that. Excuse me. I'll note that Mr. Carrasco has been a firefighter in our community for 25 years, a firefighter total for 29 years. It sounds like during this incident, he was genuinely afraid for his well-being, his life, and so I would ask for a significant reduction in the bond, no more than $10,000, Judge.
I am going to impose a bond in this case of $25,000. It is going to be a cash or secured bond. If you do post that bond, Mr. Carrasco, you'll be released to pretrial services. You do need to make sure you stay in contact with that agency, participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to have any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on. To the extent that you own any other firearms, you do need to surrender those to the Tucson Police Department. Do not give them to family members or other people. You must surrender any firearms that you have to the police department if you do post your bond. You're not allowed to have any contact with the victims in this case. Do not go anywhere near where they're living or working. To the extent that you find out about that information, you should not. Your next court date is going to be March 17th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're going to be responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear for those court dates, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand your conditions of release today, Mr. Carrasco?
Yes, Your Honor. But I don't understand how I get the time. Oh, okay.
I'll talk with him about it, Your Honor.
It's a cash or secured bond, so you don't have to come up with all 25,000. You have to come up with 10% and then collateral after that if you're going to be released. And do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear for your next court date?
Yes.
All right, you're all done for today, Mr. Carrasco.
Because we're helping you and we have used we go back to statements. But if you refuse over, you'll see again, then it's still fault.
You're under jail here.
Also, let me go just make sure that anything goes.
Mr. Felix.
Morning, tell me your name.
Hector Felix.
Mr. Felix, you were here today for a review hearing. It looks like you must still have matters pending here in Pima County.
Yes.
Right, so you're here this morning for a warrant out of Maricopa County. I'm going to affirm the bond on that warrant, and we're going to set another review hearing for you on April 7th at 9 a.m. The reason we do these review hearings, Mr. Felix, is to make sure that whenever your local charges end up clearing up, that Maricopa County does come to pick you up on that warrant that they have. So when is your next court date here?
On the 19th?
Okay, so if something happens on the 19th where you end up getting cleared for Pima County charges, whatever happens, the next thing that should happen is the jail will contact Maricopa. But if you're still pending Pima County charges, we'll see you again on April 7th at 9 a.m., okay? You're all done.
Thank
Morning, tell me your name.
Good morning, I'm Francisco Ortega.
Mr. Ortega, you are here on a warrant. This is the time for your review hearing. It looks like you still have matters pending in Pima County Superior Court, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so until those Pima County charges get picked up, we're going to continue to set review hearings for you here. The warrant that we're here to talk about is out of Santa Cruz County. So I'm going to affirm the bond. It's a $500 cash bond on that case and set another review hearing for you on April 7th at 9. If your Pima County charges are still pending, we'll see you again. It's just to make sure that we keep track of you and the case in Santa Cruz County. And make sure whenever your charges here get cleared that they come to pick you up, okay?
Okay,
All right, you're all done for today.
thank you.
Morning, Your Honor, jail here. Mr. Rivera is on his way down, but he's not quite here yet. Would you like to move him down the calendar or see him tonight?
If you want to just, so we're here for a review hearing on him as well. I think we can just roll the review hearing. And if you want to notify him that that's going to be on April 7th at 9, his bond is going to remain. So I don't know that we need to see him for that purpose because he's got other charges that are pending. Are you able to provide that information to him?
Yes, Judge.
Okay, then we'll handle it that way this morning. Thank you.
87233. Yes, we are going down.
Since we see on the third week, no, because it's putting it to the April 7th.
They go around, let's see, that's it.
Oh, no. Well, I see the color.
All the way back.
Good morning. Tell me your name.
Vada.
Ms. Vada, you are here today on a couple of justice court matters. The first is a warrant for a theft charge out of justice court, and you also have a shoplifting charge out of justice court as well. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. It looks like you also have some matters out of Tucson City Court that we're going to have to talk about today as well. The amount on the warrants for Justice Court is $500. I am going to impose that bond today, given the history of failures to appear. I'm going to appoint an attorney to represent you in Justice Court. And that is going to be Peter Gutierrez. And that is going to be a concurrent bond, cash or secured, as to both of your warrants out of Pima County Justice Court. Your next court date on those matters is going to be tomorrow at 1 o'clock. If you are still in custody and you don't post that bond, then you will be seen via video, much like you're doing here today. If you do end up posting your bond and get released, your conditions of release involve making sure that you do not return to the incident locations where the shopliftings and the theft occurred and the criminal trespass. Make sure that you don't go back to the incident locations. Do you understand those conditions of release?
Yes, I do. So I don't get to get out until I get post bond. How much is bond? So I have to post the whole 500. So I'm supposed to post 10%.
All right, we do need to talk about your city court cases as well. And you have multiple warrants out of Tucson City Court for drug paraphernalia, multiple shoplifting counts, possession of prescription drugs, and another theft. Those are all failures to appear. Looks like you have 6 cases involving all of those charges. Again, ma'am, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can will be used against you. I am going to appoint the city public defender's office for you on those cases. I am going to impose a $500 cash or secured bond on the city court cases. That is a consecutive bond to the ones in justice court. So you'd have to post a total of $1,000 if you were going to be released. Your next hearing in Tucson City Court is going to be a video review hearing on March 14th at 1:45 in the afternoon. And again, that's going to appear via video, much like you're doing here today. If you end up posting bond, then your next hearing is going to be April 7th at 9 a.m. and you'll have to physically appear at Tucson City Court. Same conditions of release on your city case based on the nature of the charges. Do not return to the incident location where the shopliftings occurred. You can't have any contact with the victims that are there. And again, if you fail to appear, they're going to keep issuing warrants for you if you get released and don't get these matters resolved. Do you understand, ma'am?
Yes.
You understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes.
You're all done for today.
Mr. Rodriguez? All the way up.
Okay.
Hi, tell me your name.
Hi, Eduardo Rodriguez.
Mr. Rodriguez, you are here today on charges of domestic violence, disorderly conduct, and criminal damage. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. These are misdemeanor matters out of justice court. I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services in your case. Tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. They also spoke with the victim in this case, who is your girlfriend, Miss Peters. She indicated that she does want to have further contact with you. So with that, sir, if you promise that you're going to appear on a court date that I give you today, I'll release you. Will you do that?
Yes. Yes, Your Honor.
And then the other thing is you're not allowed to commit any further acts of domestic violence while you're on release. Do you understand that as well?
Absolutely.
All right. So we will show that you are released on your promise to appear on this matter. Do not commit any further acts of domestic violence. Your next court date is going to be April 15th at 8:30 in the morning, and that's going to be at Sarita Justice Court. You do need to appear at that date and time. If you fail to appear for that hearing, the court can issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear, Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes, Your Honor.
When you get released later today, you will get a copy of your court paperwork, and it's going to have the date and time as well as the address and phone number for Sarita's court. You're all done for today?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Russell?
Morning, ma'am. Tell me your name.
Yanni Caitlin Russell.
Ms. Russell, you are here today on a couple of different matters. It looks like you have a warrant out of Oro Valley for a drug paraphernalia charge. And then you also have matters out of Tucson City Court for failing to appear for criminal trespass, criminal damage, and drug paraphernalia. We're going to talk about the Oro Valley case first. Looks like this warrant issued in August of this year. The bond amount on that warrant is $1,400. I am going to impose a bond in this case, less than that. It's going to be a $500 cash or secured bond. If you post that bond, then you'll be released. Your next court date in front of the Oro Valley judge is going to be March 12th at 10:30 in the morning. If you don't post your bond and you're still in custody, Ms. Russell, then you'll be seen via video, much like you're doing here today. If you post your bond, you have to go to Oro Valley Court and make sure you get this matter resolved. If you fail to appear on that March 12th date, if you're out of custody and don't show up, they're going to issue another warrant for your arrest. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Let's talk about your Tucson City Court case. I am going to give you an attorney on your Oro Valley case as well. Let me tell you who that's going to be. That's going to be Richard Glenn. So Mr. Glenn will be in contact with you about that Oro Valley matter, okay? And then for your Tucson City case,
I've been sick and I've gone to the hospital twice since I've been released from here.
okay, for your,
So I've been having a phone to use to be able to contact.
so you're going to have an attorney that you can talk to about the reasons that you haven't been showing up for your court hearings, but you failed to appear for other court hearings in 2 different jurisdictions. So you've got the bond in the Oro Valley case. I am going to release you on the city case. And I'm going to set what's called a non-transport review hearing for you in those matters for April 18th at 9 a.m. I am going to appoint the public defender's office at the city to represent you in that case. You do have to make sure that you get these matters resolved. So if you post bond on the Oro Valley case and get released, again, you have to make sure that you show up. And then for your city case, also showing up on April 18th at 9 a.m. if you post bond. Your city public defender will be out to talk with you, or they'll do a video visit. On that case, do not return to the incident location. That's where the criminal trespass or criminal damage occurred. You're not to have any contact with the victims. Do you understand those conditions of release, Ms. Russell?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear, that they're going to issue more warrants for you if you don't show up for your court?
Yes, ma'am.
You're all done for today.
Mr. Thompson?
Hi, tell me your name.
Hi, my name is Brian Thompson, Your Honor.
Mr. Thompson, you are here today on a charge of domestic violence assault. It is a misdemeanor offense. You do have the right to remain silent on that charge. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I've had an opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services that tells me a little bit about you, as well as the circumstances of the offense. If I release you today on your promise to appear, will you promise to show up at a court date that I give you in the future?
100%.
So pretrial services was unable to reach the victim in this case, Miss Murray. So what that's going to mean today is if I do release you, you are not going to be allowed to return to anywhere where she is living or working. Were the two of you living together? Okay, so you have your own residence. There's no reason for you to go back there at all. Is that right?
Correct. Sure.
So I will release you on your promise to appear. You are not to have any contact with the victim in this case. Do not go anywhere near where she is living or working. Do not commit any further acts of domestic violence, and that no contact order applies to any kind of social media, phone calls, just absolutely nothing to do with her. Do you understand those conditions of release, sir?
Yes, sure.
Your next court date is going to be March 17th at Pima County Justice Court at 10:30 in the morning. When you get released later today, you're going to get paperwork that will have that court date and time, as well as the location for the court where you need to appear. If you do fail to appear for that hearing, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear for your hearing?
Yes, sure.
All right, you're all done for today.
Thank you. Mr. Barza?
Morning. Tell me your name.
Ezekiel Barza.
Mr. Barza, you are here this morning on a charge of disorderly conduct and assault. This is our domestic violence offenses. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. We're here to set your conditions of release. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. It tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. If I release you today, will you promise to show up at a court date at Tucson City Court that I give you in the future?
Yes, ma'am.
You also are not going to be allowed to have any contact with Miss Moreno. She's the victim in this case. Do you have somewhere else that you can reside?
I'm gonna be homeless, Your Honor.
Well, you're not going to be allowed to return back to her. So if you don't have friends or family or someone else that you can stay with, if I release you today, you are not going to be allowed to have any contact with her.
Okay, no, yeah, but it's okay. I'm probably just gonna go back home to New Mexico after my court date.
Okay, do you need to return to that incident location to pick up any of your belongings? Do you have stuff there that you need to go get?
She can't have all of it. I had all everything I have going is in, she has it.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna.
She has my wallet, she has my money.
So what I'm gonna do, Mr. Barza, is on your conditions of release form that you'll get a copy of when you get released later today, I've checked a box that says you can return to the incident location, to the apartment one time to pick up all of your belongings, but you have to go with law enforcement.
Okay.
Okay, so I am gonna release you today on your promise to appear. You're not to have any contact with Miss Moreno. Don't go to where she's living or working or the incident location, but you may return one time with law enforcement to pick up your stuff. You need to either call 911 or go to a nearby police station and show them a copy of the order, and they will go with you to the apartment.
And also we work together at the Casino del Sol.
Well, you're gonna have to figure out how you are not going to have any contact with her at work.
That's not.
Mr. Barza, if you can't abide by the conditions of release, I can't release you.
I'm just gonna have to quit my job then. I'm just gonna go home.
So whatever the choices are that you need to make, you just can't have contact with her. So I don't know if there's an ability to talk with them about switching shifts, putting you in different parts. It's a big place. That's up to you to decide, okay? You just can't have contact with her. It doesn't mean that you can't go to the same places. You just aren't going to be allowed to have contact with her.
Good.
All right. Your next court date is going to be April 1st at 1:30 in the afternoon, and that is going to be in front of Judge Million at Tucson City Court. This is also the time for your arraignment on these new charges. You are presumed innocent. I'm entering not guilty pleas on your behalf. If you fail to show up for that hearing on April 1st, Mr. Barza, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. They could also go forward with that hearing in your absence and set future hearings in your absence, including a trial. If you can't be sentenced within 90 days of that trial because you failed to appear, you could also lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand all those consequences if you fail to appear for your next hearing?
Yes, ma'am. And then also, I just have one more question.
Okay.
It's just a question. Whenever I was at the scene, they took pictures of what the police took pictures of her. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I just wish to question that. Are the police supposed to take pictures of everybody that's the victim, or they can only just take pictures of one?
So that's not anything I can answer for you today. Okay, we're just here to talk about your release conditions. So anything about the facts of the case will be discussed at a later time at other hearings. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, you're all done for today, Mr. Barza.
Thank you.
Hi, tell me your name.
Hi, my name is Adrian Dominguez.
Mr. Dominguez, you are here today on charges of disorderly conduct, criminal damage, and more disorderly conduct charges. It looks like there are 4 of those. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. Those are all misdemeanor charges. I've had the opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services, tells me a little bit about you, as well as the circumstances of the offense. Looks like you have several other matters out of Tucson City Court as well that involve domestic violence offenses. I've reviewed a pretrial services report that tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of this offense. It does look like your mom and stepfather are the victims in this case.
It was just my stepfather. My mom wasn't there at the time. He had left us working.
All I can tell you, sir, is that's the information I have, is that both of them are listed as victims. So what I'm going to do today is, if I release you, will you promise to show up at a court date that I give you in the future?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to release you on your promise to appear. This is also the time for your arraignment, so I'm going to enter pleas of not guilty on all the charges today. You are presumed innocent. Your additional conditions of release. You're not going to be able to return back to where your stepdad and mom are living. Do you have somewhere else you can reside?
At the moment, I don't, but I could probably go get my belongings and go seek a homeless shelter.
All right. You're not going to be able to return back to where they are living. So I'm not going to restrict contact. It looks like pretrial services did have a chance to talk with your stepdad, and you can continue to have contact with each other, but you're not going to be allowed to return back to the incident location or to their home. So on your conditions of release form, I'm going to check the box that says you can return with law enforcement to get your belongings. So either call 911 or go to a nearby police station and make sure that you show them the order, and they will go with you to pick up anything that you need. Do you understand?
I understand.
All right. If you fail to appear for your next court date, which is going to be April 7th at 10 o'clock at Tucson City Court in front of Judge Hale, they could issue you a warrant for your arrest. They could also go forward with that hearing in your absence. And if you fail to appear, they could set a trial in your absence as well. If they do set a trial and you're convicted and you can't be sentenced within 90 days, you could lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand all those consequences for failing to appear?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Dominguez, you're all done for today.
Mr. Donaldson?
But I wanted them to know who the victims are, because he's not go back to it. And screw someone up. Okay. Good morning. Tell me your name.
James Donaldson.
Mr. Donaldson, you are here today on a charge out of Tucson City Court, 3 different charges: criminal trespass, interfering with a judicial proceeding, and drug paraphernalia. You do have the right to remain silent on those charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. If I release you on these charges today, Mr. Donaldson, will you promise to show up at a court date that I give you in the future?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. I am going to release you on your promise to appear. This is also the time for your arraignment as well as your initial appearance today on these charges. You are presumed innocent. I'm entering not guilty pleas on your behalf. You are not allowed, as a condition of your release, to return to the incident location in this case where the criminal trespass occurred. Don't go back there. There are victims there and you're not allowed to have contact with them. Do you understand all of your conditions of release?
Yes, ma'am.
Your next court date is going to be April 7th at 9:30 in the morning. That's going to be in front of Judge Maldonado at Tucson City Court. You are ordered to appear at that date and time, and if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. In addition to that warrant, the city could proceed without you for that hearing. They could also set future hearings without you, including a trial. If you're convicted at trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days, you could also lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand that you're giving up all of those rights if you fail to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
You understand the consequences if you fail to appear for your hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
You're all done for today.
Mr. Mokrais?
Hi, tell me your name.
Manuel Marquez.
Mr. Mokrais, you are here this morning on multiple warrants out of Tucson City Court. And then it looks like new charges of false reporting to law enforcement and drug paraphernalia. You do have the right to remain silent on all of these charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. We're here to talk about conditions of release today. Based on the multiple failures to appear, I am going to impose a bond today of $500 cash. I'm going to appoint the city public defender's office to represent you. If you do post that bond, sir, you are not allowed to have any contact with the victims. That means don't return to the incident locations where the criminal trespassing occurred. You're not welcome back at those places. Do you understand those conditions of release?
Yes, ma'am.
On the new charges, this is also the time for your arraignment. You are presumed innocent. I'm going to enter not guilty pleas on your behalf for those two charges. Your next court date in this case is going to be a video review hearing on March 14th at 1:45. If you don't post bond and you're still in custody, you're going to be seen via video by city court people, a city court judge at the same way you're doing here today. If you post your bond and you get released, then you're going to have a different court date of April 7th at 2:30 in the afternoon. You need to appear for your court dates, and if you fail to appear, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. They could also go forward with hearings in your absence. That includes setting a trial in your absence if you fail to appear, and if you're convicted at that trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days, you could lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand all of those consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you are all done for today. Good morning. Tell me your name. I'm sorry again. Ms. Porras, you are here today on multiple warrants out of Tucson City Court for charges involving drug paraphernalia, assault, conduct, criminal trespass, and drug paraphernalia. This is the time for your initial appearance on all of those charges. We're going to discuss conditions of release. I am going to impose a bond on this case of $500 cash. I'm going to appoint the city public defender's office to represent you. If you do post that bond and get released, you're not to commit any further acts of domestic violence. It looks like one of those charges, the assault, is a domestic violence offense. Do not have any contact with the victims in these cases and don't return to the incident location. Do you understand all those conditions of release, Ms. Porras?
Yes.
And it looks like you may also have a felony warrant or some other hold going on. Have you been seen on that yet?
No.
Okay.
I don't know about that.
Okay, well, it looks like there may be something else coming on that as well. Your next court date in this matter is going to be a video review hearing on March 13th at 1:45 in front of Judge Blue. If you're still in custody, you're going to appear via video, much like you're doing today. If you do post your bond and get released, your next hearing is going to be April 15th at 10 o'clock in the morning. When you get released, you'll get a copy of your paperwork that'll have the court dates on it. So make sure you get that. So if you don't post your bond and you stay in custody, you'll be able to be seen. But if you get out, you need to make sure you show up. If you don't appear for your court hearings, they're going to keep issuing warrants for you. Do you understand? Understand?
Yes.
Okay, you're all done for today, Ms. Porras.
Thank you.
Mr. Rivera?
Morning, tell me your full name.
Raúl Javier Rivera.
Mr. Rivera, you are here today on charges of assault, criminal damage, and disorderly conduct. They are domestic violence charges out of Tucson City Court. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. We're here to talk about your conditions of release on these charges today. I've had the opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services in this case. It tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances. They also had a chance to talk to your wife, who is the victim in this case. She does not object to your release, but you are not going to be allowed to have any contact with her. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
If I release you today, will you promise to show up at a court date that I give you in the future?
Yes, ma'am.
I am going to release you on your promise to appear today. You're not to commit any further acts of domestic violence, and you are not to have any contact of any kind with Hortensia. Do not go anywhere near where she is living or working, and don't return to the incident location. Do you understand all of those conditions of release?
Yes, ma'am.
This is also the time for your arraignment on these charges. You are presumed innocent. I'm going to enter not guilty pleas on your behalf. Your next court date is April 1st at 1:30 in the afternoon. That'll be in front of Judge Millian at Tucson City Court. When you get released later today, you're going to get a copy of the appearance order that will have the date and time as well as the location of Tucson City Court. If you fail to appear at that date and time, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. They could also go forward with that hearing in your absence. They could set future hearings in your absence if you fail to appear, including a trial. If you get convicted at that trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days, you're also going to lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand all of those consequences for failing to appear at your hearings?
Yes, ma'am.
You're all
I had a question, ma'am. I have stuff in my home. Well, we're still married, so we're obviously we didn't get divorced. But how do I get some of my belongings?
So what I'm going to do is check a box on your conditions of release form that you'll get when you get released today that says you may return one time with law enforcement to get your belongings. So when you are ready, you need to take that order to a nearby police station or call 911 and let them know that you need to go collect your belongings. They're used to doing this, but you're not allowed to go back to that house without law enforcement, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
You're all done.
Thank you.
Hi, tell me your name.
David Soso.
Mr. Salcedo, you were here today on multiple charges involving assault, domestic violence, disorderly conduct, domestic violence. There's multiple counts of each of those. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. We're here to talk about your conditions of release since this is the time for your initial appearance. I've had a chance to review information provided by pretrial services on this case. Tells me you have another Tucson City Court case involving, it looks like, the same victim, also domestic violence charges. This is the time for your arraignment on the new charges. You are presumed innocent. I'm going to enter not guilty pleas on your behalf today. I am going to impose a bond in your case, Mr. Saucedo. That bond is going to be a $2,000 cash or secured bond today. If you post that bond and get released.
$2,000?
Yes, $2,000 cash or secured.
I'm not supposed to go to work. I'm supposed to do my daily living. Like,
I'm going to appoint the city public defender's office to represent you. You can have that conversation with them. Your next hearing in this matter is going to be a video review hearing. Sir, I need you to pay attention to me.
but that's the thing. Like, I'm supposed to go to work.
Mr. Salcedo,
Yes.
if you post your bond of $2,000, then you're not to have any contact with Trisha at all. You can't go back to where she is living or working or return to the incident location. Do you understand all of those conditions of your release?
Yes.
And your next hearing, like I said, will be a video review hearing on March 12th, and that'll be Judge Millian. She's on your other case as well, so you may have already seen her. Someone from the city public defender's office will be talking with you before that hearing, so you'll have the opportunity to talk with them. If you fail to.
So I'm supposed to attend work. That's what I'm talking about. Like, how am I supposed to do my daily living? Like, if I'm supposed to be in a cell? Like, I don't get it.
If you don't post your bond, then yes, you're going to continue to be in a cell until your hearing on March 12th with Judge Millian, and then you can have your attorney revisit the conditions of release.
But that's the thing is what I don't get is.
For your new, we're not going to debate this today, sir. I'm imposing your conditions of release based on all the information I have. You need, if you fail, Sir, I need you to, hey, hello,
Yes.
we're not finished, so hang on for a second.
I thought we were done. That's why.
No, I need to tell you that if you do post bond, you're expected to appear on that court date, and if you fail to appear, they can issue a warrant for your arrest. They could also
Okay.
go forward in your absence if you don't appear. They could set a trial in your absence, and if you're convicted at that trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days, you could also lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand all those consequences if you fail to appear for court?
Yes.
You're all done for today. Sorry.
Judge, Mr. Saucedo informed me that he has belongings at their shared residence. Can he have permission to return one time with law enforcement once he gets out of custody to retrieve those belongings?
I will check the box indicating that you can return one time with law enforcement. You do need to call 911 or go to a nearby police station, and they will go with you. Do not return to the home without them present. Do you understand that, Mr. Saucedo?
Yes.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Hi, tell me your name.
Andres D. Valdez Jr.
Mr. Valdez, you were here on a warrant out of Tucson City Court for a drug paraphernalia charge. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I have an address for you on East 25th Street. Is that still a good address for you?
Yeah.
If I release you today on this warrant, will you promise to go to Tucson City Court and get it taken care of?
Yes.
I am going to release you on your promise to appear on this case. Your next court date is going to be April 8th at 9:30 in the morning in front of Judge Mayhew at Tucson City Court. You do have to show up for that hearing. If you don't show up, Mr. Valdez, they're just going to keep issuing a warrant for your arrest. When you get released today, you're going to get a copy of your paperwork that's going to have the court date and time and where you need to be, okay?
Okay.
Great. And it looks like you might have some, well, hang on. Jail, do you have a hold for him for probation?
Yeah.
Yes, we do, Your Honor.
So let me fix this. So you've got a probation hold. So what that's going to mean, Mr. Valdez, is you're not going to actually be released until you can be seen on your probation hold. Is it a felony probation hold? Are you on probation?
Yeah.
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 Okay. Right. So what I'm going to do is give you a different hearing date. I'm going to appoint the city public defender's office to represent you on the city court charge. And then your new hearing date is actually going to be April 18th instead of April 8th. And that will be a non-transport review hearing at 9 o'clock in the morning. So with your felony hold, it's just going to change things a little bit, but you will have at least a city public defender that can help you work the city court case out, okay?
Okay.
All right, you're all done, Mr. Valdez.
Rodriguez?
Mr. Valdez? Or just ROR? No, I think did I release him? I think I released him. Yeah. Got it? Okay. Sorry, I thought I had released him, but because of his felony hold, I gave him the attorney. Hi, ma'am, tell me your name.
Margarita Alejandra Rodriguez.
Ms. Rodriguez, you were here today on domestic violence charges involving disorderly conduct, and then you have assault, and then you have a resisting arrest and obstruction charge as well. These are misdemeanor offenses out of Tucson City Court. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services on this case. Tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. Looks like they did get a hold of Mr. Graham, who is the victim in the domestic violence cases. He says that you are welcome to return home and he wants to have further contact with you. What I'm going to tell you, ma'am, is that if I do release you today, you have to promise to appear at a court date that I give you in the future. Will you do that?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you're not going to be allowed to commit any further acts of domestic violence. Can you follow that as well?
ma'am.
I'm going to release you on your promise to appear. Do not commit any further acts of domestic violence. Your next court date in this matter is going to be April 1st at 1:30 in the afternoon, and that's going to be in front of Judge Millian. When you get released later today, you'll get a copy of your court paperwork that's going to have that date and time of the hearing, as well as the location for Tucson City Court. This is the time for your arraignment on these new charges as well. You are presumed innocent. I'm entering not guilty pleas on your behalf. If you fail to appear for that hearing on April 1st, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. They could also go forward with that hearing in your absence and set other hearings that include a trial. If a trial is set and you're not there and get convicted, you could lose your right to a direct appeal if you can't be sentenced within 90 days. Do you understand all of those consequences if you fail to appear for your hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you're all done for today. Do we have a 109 Lasso? Or no, sorry, that was her. Nope, we're done. Okay. Good morning. Tell me your full name.
It's Lasso.
Mr. Lasso, you are here today on charges of aggravated DUI involving a passenger that is under 15, possession of drug paraphernalia, and possession of a narcotic drug. These are felony offenses. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. Today, I'm appointing the Public Defender's Office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. We're here to discuss your conditions of release. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. It tells me a little bit about you, your background, and the circumstances of the offense. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release today. The state is asking for a $2,500 cash or secured bond and then release to pretrial if you post that bond. Mr. Hotchkiss, did you need to be heard further?
I did not, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Takessian?
Judge, I'll note that he has no recent failures to appear. He's a lifelong resident of Tucson, so he has ties to this community. He's a full-time employed by a landscaper. I would ask for a bond not to exceed $1,500, Judge.
I am going to impose a bond in this case. It's going to be the $2,500 cash or secured. If you post that bond, then you'll be released to pretrial services. You must participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. This is an alcohol-related offense, so you will very likely be asked to participate in alcohol monitoring. You are not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol, obviously no illegal drugs, and do not drive without a valid license. Your next hearing in this matter is going to be March 17th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That is going to be a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're expected to show up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand all of your conditions of release today, Mr. Lasso?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear for your next hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
If you stay in custody, the jail will make sure that you're either transported or that you appear via video for your hearing. But if you post your bond, it's important that you stay in contact with your attorney from the Public Defender's Office and pretrial services to make sure you don't miss court dates if they change. Understand?
Okay, so is that the kind of bond that
Cash or secured.
you could put something collateral? Oh, okay. Okay.
All right, you're all done for today, Mr. Lasso.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you.
Lito.
Lito. You don't want to goes on the phone? No.
Well, for this possession.
Okay.
Morning, tell me your name.
Natasha Polito.
Ms. Polito, you are here today on charges of possession of drug paraphernalia, possession of a dangerous drug, and possession of a narcotic drug. These are felony offenses. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney on these felony cases or felony charges. I am going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you today, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of this hearing. I've had an opportunity to review information that's provided by pretrial services. Tells me a little bit about you and also the circumstances of the offense. What pretrial services tells me is based on the nature of these offenses, the fact that they are personal possession drug cases, you could be eligible to participate in a program. It's a pre-indictment diversion program that if you agree to participate in substance abuse treatment, the state would not go forward with these felony charges. Is that something that you're interested in doing?
Yeah, yes.
All right. So with that, counsel, I am going to release her to pretrial services. Does anyone need to be heard further?
We do not, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Kessian?
No, Judge. If she's being released, we'll waive time on the PH though.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Polito. So what's going to happen is I'm going to give you a court date next week, and that's going to be for what we refer to as the steps hearing. And that is going to be the time that you're going to find out whether or not you're eligible to participate in this pre-indictment diversion program. That's going to be on March 13th at 9 a.m. next week. It's going to be on the third floor of Superior Court in front of Judge Hampson. Your attorney will be there on that date, pretrial services will be there on that date, and you'll also have a chance to meet with service providers in our community so you can get connected to those services to do your substance abuse treatment. If you don't show up for that hearing, then the next hearing right now is going to be April 21st at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a preliminary hearing, and that hearing may or may not happen. If you enroll in the STEPS program, your attorney will give you direction about that next court date. You are responsible for showing up at all future court dates, and if you fail to appear, they can issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you don't show up for your hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
Your other conditions of release, since I am releasing you to pretrial services, is that you must stay in contact with that agency. You have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol and obviously no illegal drugs. You can't have any firearms while this case is going on. Do you understand all of your additional conditions of release?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. When you get released later today, you need to make sure that you're checking in with pretrial services. Mr. Kessian, are you going to give her the information she needs to do that?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. All right, you're all done for today, Ms. Polito.
Oh, dude, go that well?
Hi, tell me your name.
Alexander Dominguez.
Mr. Adame, you are here on multiple matters today. You're here on a new felony charge involving third-degree burglary. You're also here on a warrant out of Maricopa County Superior Court for aggravated driving while being under the influence, a couple of counts, unlawful use of means of transportation, unlawful flight from law enforcement, and a couple of counts of aggravated DUI. Looks like there is a warrant amount of $50 on that for a secured appearance. We also are going to talk about some Tucson City Court matters that you have as well. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. On the felony charges, you do have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you. And you do have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. We're going to talk about your conditions of release. I've reviewed the information provided by pretrial services. Mr. Adame, I need you to pay attention to me for a minute because we have some things we have to talk about, okay? You'll get a chance to talk with her in just a second. It looks like you also have a hold out of adult probation. So regardless of what I do for your conditions of release on this case, you're going to be held until you can be seen on your probation matter. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. I've reviewed the state's recommendation. Their bond request is $2,500. That is my inclination in light of the history and his probation hold. Mr. Hotchkiss, did you need to be heard further?
Nothing further from me, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Tessian?
Judge, I would note he has significant ties to the community. He's a 16-year resident of Tucson. I would ask for a bond not to exceed $1,500.
I am going to impose a bond on your new case, Mr. Adame, of $2,500 cash or secured. If you post that bond, then you'll be released to pretrial. You have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You can't have any alcohol or illegal drugs, obviously, and no firearms while this case is going on. Do not have any contact with the victim in this case and don't return to the incident location. Do you understand all of those conditions of release for your new third-degree burglary charge?
Yes, what's this new third-degree burglary charge?
You're going to be given a chance to talk to your attorney about that, okay? Your next hearing is going to be March 17th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a preliminary hearing. That hearing may or may not occur, but you're responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, so I have a new charge here.
Yes, you do.
Can I ask for what? I'm sorry, because
It's a third-degree burglary charge, and your attorney can talk with you about the facts of the case. We're not going to do that here today. All right, now we need to talk, Mr. Adame, about your warrant out of Maricopa County. So I am going to impose the $50 cash bond on that warrant.
oh my God. Okay.
And you are going to get a review hearing here since you have charges pending here in Pima County. I am going to give you a review hearing date for April 7th at 9 a.m. So what that means, Mr. Adame, is that once you get all your local matters done, your probation hold, your city court, and the new charge, then Maricopa County can come pick you up on that warrant or you can post that bond. But until then, we're going to make sure we keep track of that Maricopa County case by having a review hearing. So that's the April 7th date at 9. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right, now we need to talk about your Tucson City Court charges as well. And it looks like you have warrants out of Tucson City Court for threats and intimidation, criminal damage, leaving the scene of an accident, and an assault. I am going to release you on your city court charges. I am going to appoint the city public defender's office to represent you since you're still going to be in custody and set what they are calling a non-transport review hearing for April 18th at 9 a.m. If you are still in custody, then your attorney with the city will talk with you about what's going to happen. But if you post bond and get released, then you're going to need to appear at Tucson City Court at that date and time. You are not allowed to have any contact with the victims in that case. Don't return to the incident locations. Do you understand all of those conditions of release for your Tucson City Court matter?
Yes.
And if you fail to appear for your Tucson City Court matter, if you get released, then they can issue another warrant for your arrest. Do you understand those consequences?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you're all done for today, Mr. Adame. Mhm. Thank you. Anyway, set that all aside.
Morning.
Morning, tell me your name.
Aaron James Butler.
Mr. Butler, you are here today on charges of possession of a narcotic drug and possession of drug paraphernalia. This is the time for your initial appearance. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You have the right to have an attorney appointed on this felony case. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office today, and you do have counsel seated with you for purposes of this hearing. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services on this case. It tells me that you are on probation in a Pima County Superior Court case. What that means, sir, is regardless of what I do on these new charges relating to the drug case, you're going to be held until you can be seen on your probation matter. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
So pretrial services tells me that on the new charges, based on the fact that they are personal possession drug cases, you could be eligible to participate in STEPS, which is a pre-indictment diversion program on the new charges, where if you agree to participate in substance abuse treatment, the state would not go forward with the felony charges just in this new matter. Is that something that you're interested in seeing if you're eligible for?
Yes, Your Honor.
I don't know if you're going to be eligible, but we're going to set a hearing for that STEPS matter on March 13th at 9 a.m. That'll be in front of Judge Hampson in Pima County Superior Court. If you're eligible to participate, you'll be transported to the courtroom on that date, and you'll have a chance to meet with your attorney, pretrial services, and also service providers that are in the courtroom so that you can get set up with services. If you're not eligible, you likely won't be transported on that date. Your next hearing in this case is going to be March 13th at 1:30. That's going to be your arraignment date. You're going to appear via video for that, just like you're doing here today. So it looks like this is actually a warrant that was issued out of Superior Court. The bond amount on the warrant was $2,500. It looks like you were released to pretrial, and then they later went back and indicted the case. So the inclination as far as release conditions on the new matter, counsel, is $2,500 cash or secured bond and then release to pretrial. Does either one of you need to be heard further, Mr. Hotchkiss?
Thank
Ms. Takessian?
Nothing, Judge.
All right. So on this case, Mr. Butler, I am going to impose a $2,500 cash or secured bond. You'll be released to pretrial if you post that bond and get your probation matter resolved. You have to participate in any monitoring or treatment pretrial services directs. You can't have any alcohol or illegal drugs and no firearms while this case is going on. Do you understand all your conditions of release for this matter?
Yes, Your Honor.
And if you fail to appear for that arraignment, if you do get released before that date, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. You need to make sure you appear for all future court dates. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're all done for today, Mr. Butler.
Thank you.
Mr. Gilly?
Hi, tell me your name.
I'm Michael Gilly.
Mr. Gilly, you are here on multiple matters here today. You have a felony charges involving organized retail theft, aggravated identity theft, forgery, and possession of drug paraphernalia. You are also here on a warrant out of Pima County Justice Court for possession of drug paraphernalia and failing to appear.
Yeah, I filed a motion with the court to get in the court date. I haven't received a return on that.
Okay, and then you're also here on Tucson City Court charges, where you have a warrant for you for drug paraphernalia and prescription drugs. So we have to talk about all of those matters. The first thing we're going to do is talk about your felony matter first. You do have the right to remain silent on all of these cases, Mr. Gilly. Anything you say can and will be used against you. On the felony matter, I am going to appoint the legal defender's office to represent you here today, and you do have counsel seated with you for purposes of this hearing to discuss your conditions of release. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release. Mr. Hotchkiss, you're recommending release to pretrial.
Yes, Your Honor.
That is the court's inclination. Mr. Kessian, do you need to be heard further?
No, Judge, I think pretrial is appropriate.
So, Mr. Gilly, I'm going to release you on your felony cases today to pretrial services. That means you have to stay in contact with that agency. Mr. Kessian will make sure you have the number to do that. You're going to have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms. You are also not allowed to return to the incident location. Do not go back to Target and do not have any contact with the victims. Do you understand all those conditions of release?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your next hearing in this case is going to be March 26th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's going to be a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences for failing to appear?
Yes, Your Honor.
And because you're going to be out of custody, it's going to be very important that you stay in contact with your attorney. And if you don't stay in contact with your attorney, you won't know when the new court dates are. Do you understand?
Understand.
Now we need to talk about your misdemeanor case. I am going to release you on your promise to appear on that warrant for the possession of drug paraphernalia. I'm going to give you another court date in that one. That is going to be March 17th at 8:30 in the morning at Pima County Justice Court. So you need to make sure that you appear at that date and time. Again, if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. And then finally, we need to talk about your city court matters. I am going to release you on that as well and give you another court date. Your Tucson City court date is going to be April 8th at 9:30 in the morning, and that's going to be in front of Judge Mayhew. You do need to make sure you show up for that date and time. If you don't show up, they're going to issue another warrant for you. Do you understand, Mr. Gilly?
I understand.
You have a
I'll be there.
lot of court dates, a lot of things you need to keep track of. When you get released from the jail later today, you should get copies of all your paperwork. One for your felony, one for the justice court, and also for the city court. Make sure you hold on to those. It'll have all the dates and times and where you need to appear, okay?
Okay, well,
We're all done for today.
thank you.
I know I went over everything, but do you want, it's going to be the bond and then the monitoring and everything that I checked on the other one. Do you want to just can you just duplicate that for me? Okay. I did. Okay. Gabriel Rivera. Let me send that one to you. Yeah, thank you. Hi, sir. Tell me your name.
Colton Hyatt.
Mr. Hyatt, you are here today on a warrant out of Pima County Superior Court for ag DUI. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. Jail, I'm noting from pretrial that there is a probation hold. Are you showing that? It looks like it's a Tucson City Court probation violation warrant.
Yes, that's what they're verifying us.
Okay. So, Mr. Hyatt, regardless of what we do here today, you're going to remain in custody until you get that probation warrant taken care of. And I don't know, it looks like that's actually adult probation and you have a Tucson City Court case pending. I've reviewed pretrial services, which gives me all of the information about you, your background. There is a $1,500 amount on the bond out of Pima County Superior Court. It is the court's inclination to impose a $2,500 cash or secured bond today, given the information that I've reviewed. Does either party wish to be heard further on the bond?
Your Honor, we were asking for the 5,500 because he's previously posted a $3,000 bond in this case, and that was apparently at a time when he then, well, I'm actually not sure of the timing of the new indictment. However, it looks like he previously posted a bond and then hasn't been seen until now. I don't know if that's due to the direct indictment nature of what's now before the court or what, but he has a capacity to post bond. That plus the 363 BAC is concerning to us.
Thank you, Mr. Hotchkiss. And I did note that, and the reason for the 2,500 was the nature of the directs, I think, in this particular case. Ms. Takessian, did you want to be heard further?
I think with the $1,500 bond already imposed and the $2,500 you're inclined to do, I think that will give Mr. Hyatt enough skin in the game to ensure that he appears at future court appearances.
So the one we're here to talk about today is the one for the failure to appear on that warrant that we discussed. I am going to impose a $2,500 cash or secured bond. If you post that bond, Mr. Hyatt, you'll be released to pretrial services. You're going to be ordered to participate in monitoring and treatment. This is or treatment. This is a drug or an alcohol offense, so they are going to make you test. You are not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or legal drugs, and you may not drive without a valid license. Do you understand all of those conditions of release?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your next court date is going to be March 13th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's the arraignment. You must appear at that date and time, and if you fail to appear, a warrant can issue for your arrest. If you don't post bond and remain in custody, then you will be seen via video, much like you're doing here today. You're not going to be released until your probation matter is resolved. And so if you stay in custody, that would be another reason that you'll appear via video for your arraignment. If you get released, you have to show up. Do you understand all of that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. That is all for today.
Lopez.
The only other thing was that state. I'll let you look at that. Hi, tell me your name.
Juan Daniel Lopez.
So I have your name as Pedro Nectar Lopez.
Put somebody else in. Yeah, because my name is Daniel. Sorry about that. Hey, bro. Will my paperwork come?
Yes, right.
Okay. You, Martinez.
Hi, sir. Tell me your name.
Hi, Diego Martinez.
I don't think he can hear you, so.
Sorry, my name is Diego Martinez.
Mr. Martinez, sorry, you have an attorney here who's trying to talk. Give me just a second. Hang on. Okay, perfect. Now we have the mics on. All right. Mr. Martinez, this is the time for your initial appearance. This is on a charge that involves an aggravated assault on a corrections employee. It looks like it's a warrant out of Santa Cruz County. Oh, no, sorry. Hang on. Wrong one. And I think we have a victim that's on the phone in this one as well. All right. So, Mr. Martinez, you actually have several things going on today. So it looks like we have 3 separate felony interim complaints that we're here to talk about. One of them is for burglary in the 3rd degree. Another is for possession of a narcotic drug in a drug-free school zone and possession of a narcotic drug. The third is possession of a dangerous drug. And then we also have matters out of Tucson City Court that we need to talk about as well. You do have the right to remain silent on these charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney on the felony charges. It looks like you have there is an attorney here on your behalf. Curtis Fisher filed a notice of appearance. Sir, now if you want to announce your appearance.
Yes, I apologize, Your Honor. Good morning.
okay.
My name is Curtis Fisher. We're appearing just for the hearing today, just to kind of figure out what's going on.
Okay, so could you hear that, Mr. Martinez?
Yes, I could.
Great. I've had an opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services. It tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense, your history. I've also had an opportunity to review some information the state provided regarding your conditions of release. And it looks like we do have a victim that is on the phone. Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Hang on. Denise, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, all right. So we're here to talk about the conditions of release. It looks like the state's recommendation is released to pretrial services on all of these matters. Mr. Hotchkiss, did you need to be heard further?
I don't believe so, Your Honor. I might be mistaken on this, but did I mention of a Santa Cruz warrant or an out-of-county warrant?
That was my mistake because that was actually Mr.
Oh.
Lopez who had appeared earlier.
Got it.
And that was the file I had in front of me. So I needed to switch files. So nope, that was on me. This is not that one.
Okay, very good. So given his absence of other criminal history and the nature of the offenses, he seems like an appropriate candidate for pretrial services release. That's all I have.
All right. So, ma'am, you have the opportunity to be heard on conditions of release. What we're here to talk about today is not related to the offense in this case. This is simply to discuss what his release conditions should be. Do you have thoughts on that you want to share with the court this morning?
I have no problem of him getting released or coming back home.
Okay. So I am going to release Mr. Martinez to pretrial services on all of his matters. Did you need to be heard further, Mr. Fisher?
No, Your Honor, the defense is in agreement with pretrial services. He also does have another place to stay if the court's unwilling to grant him permission to return to the family home. But it appears as though Denise is amenable to him being able to return.
I am going to allow him to return home. And we'll talk about more of that in just a minute. All right, Mr. Martinez, so you'll be released to pretrial services. You have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on. It looks like for your drug-related charges, you may be eligible to participate in a pre-indictment diversion program where if you agree to participate in substance abuse treatment, the state would not go forward with the felony drug charges. Is that something you want to participate in?
Yes, I would like to participate in that, Your Honor.
Right. So what I'm going to do is set a hearing for you next week. It's a steps hearing. And that's going to be March 13th at 9 a.m. on the 3rd floor of Superior Court in front of Judge Hampson. You do need to appear at that hearing, and you're going to find out whether or not you're eligible to participate in that program. If you are, you and your attorney will be given copies of paperwork at that hearing. It's the contract that you can review.
Your Honor, on the hearing time, again, he does attend high school at Poblano High School.
It's not going
Not
to
in the
change.
afternoon. Okay.
Nope, that is going to have to be the time he's going to have to be there. So,
I understand. Your Honor.
okay. Yeah, nope. That is the time that the hearing is going to take place. So whatever arrangements you have to make for school, if you want to see if you're eligible, you're going to have to show up.
Yes, Your Honor.
Your next court date on the drug cases, on the felony cases after that is going to be March 26th. And actually, Mr. Curtis, normally what we do for the drug cases is extend the preliminary hearing out to 45 days to see if he's eligible. Are you willing to do that?
Yes, Your Honor, and we'd waive time to the extent necessary to
Great.
see if he can do the steps program.
All right. So, Mr. Martinez, what I just spoke with your attorney about is normally the state has 20 days to indict you on felony charges. Because we're going to see if you're eligible to participate in the pre-indictment diversion program, we're going to waive that time a little bit. So the time for your preliminary hearing is actually going to be April 21st at 1:30 in the afternoon. That hearing may or may not happen, but you'll need to stay in contact with your attorney, and you are expected to show up. If you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand all of that?
Yes, Your Honor.
I need to fill out some paperwork and catch up on all of these different interims. So give me just a moment. And I'm going to note the waiver of time for both of the drug interims. Is that all right, counsel?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
All right. And then no committing any acts of domestic violence, Mr. Martinez. So I'm going to allow you to return back home based on the information that was provided to the court. You understand that additional condition that I just imposed?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Now, here's the thing with that case is it's going to have a different preliminary hearing date because of the steps matter. So that date is going to be March 26th at 1:30 in the afternoon. And again, I don't know whether or not that hearing is going to go forward, but it's going to be important that you stay in contact with your attorney and pretrial services so that you know what next steps are in that case. And if you don't,
Yes,
if you don't show up, they'll issue a warrant for you. Do you understand all of that?
yes, Your Honor.
All right. And the DV is actually your city court case. So let's talk about other conditions and release in that matter.
Sir, you have to take a seat. The meeting will wrap.
All right, I'm releasing you on your promise to appear in that city court matter as well. Again, commit no acts of domestic violence. Your next hearing in that case is going to be on April 4th at 9:30 in the morning. And that's going to be in front of Judge Verena. For these new misdemeanor DV charges of assault and disorderly conduct, you do have the right to remain silent on those as well. Anything you say can be used against you. You have your attorney. Are you appearing on the misdemeanor matters as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
This is also the time for your arraignment on those new charges. You are presumed innocent. We're going to enter not guilty pleas on your behalf. If you fail to show up for that hearing on April 4th at 9:30, Mr. Martinez, they could issue a warrant for your arrest, and they could also go forward in your absence if you fail to appear. They could set a trial in your absence, and if you're convicted and can't be sentenced within 90 days of that conviction, you could lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand all of those consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, Your Honor.
We're all done for today. Denise, thank you for being here.
So much. Have a good night. Thank you. Have a good night.
Mr. Lopez. The other way, the other way. Everybody else.
Hi, tell me your name.
Pedro Lopez, Lidor.
Sir, you are here today on a warrant out of Santa Cruz County for ag assault on a corrections employee. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you. Jail, are you showing any other holds or just the warrant?
Just the warrant, Your Honor.
Okay. So it looks like there is a $10,000 bond amount on this warrant. I am going to impose the $10,000 cash or secured bond. What'll happen, Mr. Lopez, is Santa Cruz County is going to be notified that you're here and being held on that bond, and they will come pick you up, hopefully sometime within the next week or so. They should be here within a few days. We're going to set a review hearing for you here in Pima County, just in case for some reason something happens. We want to make sure that you're being seen and not held there. That hearing is going to be in about 30 days on April 7th at 9 a.m. That's not going to be a hearing that you need to worry about unless you're still in custody at the jail. And if you are, they'll have you appear much like you're doing today. You understand all of that, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right, you're all done for today.
Approved.
Hi, tell me your name.
Colton McGrew.
Mr. McGrew, you are here today on a charge of being a prohibited possessor and having a firearm. You do have the right to remain silent on this charge. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review information from pretrial services that tells me a little bit about you and your circumstances. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation. They're asking for a $5,500 bond. Mr. Hotchkiss, did you need to be heard further?
Just briefly, we think a bond is warranted given, the fact that he's possessing a gun when he's obviously not eligible to do so. Thank you.
Mr. Kessian?
Judge, I do think a bond would be appropriate in this matter. I would ask for a bond not exceeding $3,000. Although he doesn't have any recent failures to appear, and he's a lifelong resident and has employment as a barber.
I am going to impose a bond of $3,000 cash or secured. If you post that bond, Mr. McGrew, then you'll be released to pretrial services. You have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. Don't possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. And you are not allowed to have any firearms or weapons. Do you understand those conditions of release?
Yes, ma'am.
Your next hearing is going to be March 17th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's going to be a preliminary hearing. If you fail to appear for your future hearing dates, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. That preliminary hearing may or may not go forward. So it's going to be important if you post bond, especially that you stay in contact with your attorney so that you're aware of any court date changes. Do you understand all of that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you're all done for today, Mr. McGrew.
Thank you.
Ms. Perez.
Mr. Vega, are you still there with us? He is not. Okay. Hi, ma'am. Tell me your name.
Mickey Perez.
What's your middle name?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mickey Cheyenne Perez.
Ms. Perez, you were here today for an initial appearance on a warrant out of Justice Court. And the warrant is for custodial interference, 2 different counts for things that occurred from February 2nd through March 5th of 2025. There is a $50,000 bond amount on that warrant. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I am going to appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you, and you do have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. We're here to discuss your conditions of release. The state is asking for the $50,000 that's on the warrant. Mr. Hotchkiss?
Your Honor, unfortunately, I do not have a ton of information about the facts of this case. It's not appearing in our case management system, just some basic case narratives from the Oro Valley Police Department. It looks like the child at issue here was, this situation arose, kind of as part of a somewhat bitter custody dispute, while I believe Miss Perez and the male father of the child are going through a potential divorce. Beyond that, I don't have a whole lot of information on the specifics in terms of what specifically occurred, how long the child was away, and so forth.
Thank you, Mr. Kessian.
Judge, I would ask for a bond not to exceed $10,000. I'll note that Ms. Perez has no criminal history. She's employed full-time as a nurse. Her fiance is willing to take third-party custody, and she's very low on both the NCA and failure to appear scores. I think a lower bond will be able to secure her appearance at her court dates.
I am going to impose a bond today of $10,000 cash or secured. I do know there is the $50,000, but it is the warrant that was issued out of justice court. If you do post that $10,000 bond, Ms. Perez, then you'll be released to pretrial services. You're going to have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct, stay in contact with that agency. You are not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs while you're on release in this case, and you're also not allowed to have any firearms. Your next court date in this matter is going to be March 17th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes.
Because if you do post bond and get out of custody, it will be really important for you to stay in touch with your attorney so you're aware of any court date changes. If you do remain in custody, the jail will make sure you get transported. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right, you're all done for today, Ms. Perez. Hi, tell me your name.
Stephen Joseph Polito.
Mr. Polito, you are here today on felony charges involving possession of a narcotic drug, possession of drug paraphernalia, weapons misconduct during a drug offense, and second-degree trafficking and stolen property. You do have the right to remain silent on this case. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm going to appoint the Legal Defender's Office to represent you, and you do have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services that tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. I've also had the opportunity to review the state's recommendation. Mr. Hotchkiss, you're asking for release to pretrial?
That's correct.
That is the court's inclination. Mr. Kessian, do you need to be heard further?
No, Judge, I think pretrial is appropriate.
So, Mr. Polito, you're going to be released today to pretrial services. You're going to have to stay in contact with that agency, participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to have any alcohol, don't have any illegal drugs, and no firearms or weapons while this case is going on. You are not allowed to have any contact with the victim in this case involving the trafficking and stolen property, and do not return to that incident location. Do you understand all of those conditions of release?
Yes.
Your next court date is going to be March 26th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're expected to show up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Because you're going to be out of custody, it's going to be important that you stay in contact with your attorney so you're aware of any court date changes. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes.
You're all done for today.
Yes.
Orga.
Hi, sir. Tell me your name.
William Paul Quiroga.
Mr. Quiroga, you are here today on a couple of different matters. You have new charges involving theft of means of transportation, 2 of those, burglary in the 3rd degree, possession of drug paraphernalia, and possession of both a narcotic drug and a dangerous drug. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have a warrant out of Pima County Superior Court for failing to appear at initial appearance and arraignment on a drug possession case. The bond amount on that warrant is $500. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services on this case. Tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. I also have had an opportunity to review information provided by the state on their recommendation. It does look like, sir, you have another Pima County Superior Court case, CR 2025-0584. You were released to pretrial services. As a result of that, the state is asking that you be held without bond on these new charges here today. That is a request that they get to make in light of your being on release and committing a new offense. So what that means, sir, is you are going to be held without bond. Mr. Hotchkiss, that is the state's request.
That's correct, Your Honor. Thank you.
So your hearing to discuss whether or not that is going to remain in place or if a bond will be set is going to be March 11th at 2:30 in the afternoon. You'll be transported to Superior Court for that hearing, and you'll have an opportunity to talk with your attorney. The next hearing on the underlying charges for you is going to be March 17th at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're expected to show up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes.
Obviously, if you're in custody, Mr. Quiroga, the jail will make sure that you appear either like you're doing today via video or bring you to court for your next court hearings. The next matter we need to talk about is that warrant out of Pima County Superior Court for the drug offenses. I am going to impose the $500 cash or secured bond that is on that warrant. And if you do post the bond, you'll be released to pretrial services. You have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You can't possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms. Your next hearing in that case is going to be March 13th at 1:30 in the afternoon. You're still in custody. The jail will make sure that you appear for that hearing. But if you do post bond, if they post a bond in your new matter and you get released, you are going to have to show up at that date and time. And if you fail to appear, they'll issue a warrant for you. Do you understand, Mr. Quiroga?
Yes.
All right, you're all done for today.
To start.
Hi, ma'am. Tell me your full name.
Denise Marie Stark.
Ms. Stark, you were here today for charges involving possession of a narcotic drug and drug paraphernalia. The information that I've been given by the state is they do intend to dismiss your case without prejudice today. Mr. Hotchkiss, is that your intent?
Correct, Your Honor. Thank you.
So we do have to talk about a Tucson City court case, Ms. Stark, but you are going to be released on this matter as the state is dismissing the interim complaint without prejudice.
Thank you, ma'am.
Let's talk about your city court matter. It looks like you have a failure to appear for a shoplifting case out of Tucson City Court. If I release you on that today, will you promise me that you'll go to and give you the court?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's not going to go away, Ms. Stark. You have to show up to court, all right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. You do have the right to remain silent on that charge. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I am going to release you on your promise to appear. Your next court date is going to be April 7th at 2:30 in the afternoon, and that is going to be at Tucson City Court. When you get released later today, you'll get a copy of your paperwork that will have your release conditions as well as the date and time I just gave you. You are not allowed to return to the incident location wherever the shoplifting occurred. Don't go back there. That's where the victims are, and you cannot have contact with them. If you don't show up at that April 7th date, they'll issue a warrant. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am. I just have one question. They took away my 1-year-old son last night with the charges that just got dismissed. Is there a way that I could find out any information about him, where he's at?
I don't have any of that information, ma'am. I'm sorry. That's not anything I can help you with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're all done for today. Hi, ma'am. Tell me your full name.
Hi, Melissa M. Sue.
Ms. Sue, you are here today on charges of organized retail theft, aggravated identity theft, forgery, and possession of drug paraphernalia. You do have the right to remain silent on this case. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office today, and you do have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing. We're here to talk about conditions of release today. It looks like you were released to pretrial services on another matter. In spite of that, it looks like the state is asking for a $5,500 bond. Mr. Hotchkiss, did you want to be heard further?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Kessian?
Judge, I'll note that Ms. Sue has no prior felonies. She also currently doesn't have any employment. So a $5,500 bond, she just wouldn't be able to pay. I would ask for a bond not to exceed $1,000.
I am going to impose a bond today of $2,500 cash or secured. If you do post that bond, Ms. Sue, then you'll be released to pretrial services. You have to stay in touch with that agency, participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You are not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or obviously any illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on. You also are not allowed to have any contact with the victims in this case and do not return to the incident location. Do you understand all of those conditions of your release?
Yes.
Your next court date in this matter is going to be March 17th, 2025 at 1:30 in the afternoon. That is going to be a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you are responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes.
All right, you're all done for today, Ms. Sue. Hi, tell me your name.
Hello, Honor. My name is Cruz Capicio.
Mr. Capicio, you are here today on a charge of aggravated assault on a healthcare worker. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. Today, I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. It tells me a little bit about you as well as the circumstances of the offense in this case. I've also had a chance to review information provided by the state with respect to their recommendation. Looks like they are recommending pretrial services. There is no history in this case. Mr. Hotchkiss, did you want to be heard further?
Nope, that covers it. Thank you, Judge.
Mr. Kessian, I am inclined to release him to pretrial services, and he is not allowed to go back to the incident location.
Judge, I think pretrial services is appropriate.
So, Mr. Capicio, you're going to be released to pretrial services today on these felony charges. You're going to have to stay in contact with that agency, participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You are not allowed to have any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you are also not allowed to have any firearms while this case is going on. Do not have any contact with the victims, which means you're not allowed to return to the incident location. Do you understand all of those conditions of release?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your next court date is going to be March 26th at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you will be responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. You're going to be out of custody, so it's going to be important that you stay in contact with your attorney so you're aware of any court date changes. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear for your hearing?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you're all done for today. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. I think that's all of it for today.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Bye.